major United in-flight attack could have been avoided if air marshals weren't babysitting migrants at the border, Union says. Worst fears coming true. Passengers on a United Airlines flight from Los Angeles to Boston were forced to take down a man trying to stab a flight attendant last year because there were no air marshals present due to their continued deployments to the southern border, the Post has learned. During the height of the border crisis, the federal government has been sending 200 air marshals to go to the border on a 21-day deployment, leaving major flights vulnerable to threats. Sonia Labasco, a retired supervisory air marshal, federal air marshal, National Council told the Post, third time's a charm, right? From her own experience, Labasco knew the LA to Boston route was the one that was always staffed by marshals. She became even more concerned when passengers of a March 2023 flight 2609 began contacting her, knowing they were left to tackle the threatening passenger on their own. Because we had deployed air marshals to the border, there were no air marshals on that flight, so our worst fears were coming true. Every day with the in-flight incidents that were occurring, that air marshals would have been on those flights to keep those passengers from being injured. That day and any other day, air marshals have been deployed to the border. They've been there merely handing out water, making sandwiches, Uber Eats runs, bringing diapers and stuff into the facilities, and unloading trucks. It's absolutely ridiculous. By taking air marshals away from their law enforcement duties, while also releasing millions of migrants crossing the southern border illegally, who then often fly commercially, there are major concerns that the next 9/11 could easily happen. In recent months, federal authorities have been conducting major sweeps of ISIS terrorists and those associated with terror-tied smuggling rings who have been released into the country via the southern border. Some still remain at large. The long-haul flights are super important for us to be on because those are the same flights the 9/11 hijackers actually targeted and took that day on 9/11. That worry is something a federal watchdog highlighted in a recent report concerning airplane security, while the understaffed air marshals were tied up at the southern border. That report found that Transportation Security Administration, which oversees air marshals, failed to assess the operational impact on its primary mission of safeguarding the nation's transportation system. Without establishing performance measures and assessing risks relating to deploying air marshals, TSA cannot ensure deployments did not impact FAM's mission to mitigate potential risks and threats to our nation's transportation system. With respect to costs, TSA incurred approximately $45 million in travel and payroll costs associated with deployment of air marshals to the southern border from May 2019 to August 2023. And I don't think I'm going to have to contribute much to this. Air marshals belong in the air on airplanes, looking out for threats. Border Patrol belongs on the border, looking for threats and ready to assess them by any means necessary, even if that means shooting it. If we have people illegally crossing the border, breaking the law, we can't have that. We must send a serious message to those who disregard our wishes of illegally crossing the border, I guess. I think that was on video too. The guy was wielding a knife. He was making his way up to the cockpit. There were 4 people standing there too, and he tried to just like stab him. Unfortunately, he didn't get anyone, and he was just tackled to the ground. But imagine if someone actually got stabbed on that flight. I mean, it would just expose the left again as people who are extremely willing to put the lives of American citizens in danger because they want to claim to feel inclusive toward illegal immigrants who commit crimes. It sounds insane when I say that, but how can you interpret that any other way? Here's what we have to do. Step 1. enact the world's largest deportation operation in human history. That can be done. You gotta build the wall, put some spike extensions on top of the wall to make it harder to grab, and if they somehow manage to get over it, we should have armed border patrol ready to finish the job, as Joe Biden would say. If that person had made his way into the cockpit, if that person had stabbed all those 4 people outside the cockpit, then went inside and stabbed the pilot, and then he crashed into another building, the fact that there were no air marshals available, the fact that the southern border is flooded all the time, American people would have put 2 and 2 together and realized that this hypothetical plane crash would have been the fault of the Biden administration and Democrats in general. Cross any other country's borders illegally, you would get detained or worse. Cross into our borders illegally, congratulations, you're a fucking citizen. Here's the bottom line. The US should have a zero-tolerance illegal immigrant policy. You or your family attempt to come here illegally, I'm sorry, but you will be dealt with and shot. That should be the case. I mean, just the mere thought of Border Patrol being armed. You think they'd cross knowing that they'd be shot? I wouldn't take that chance. So let's just play a couple scenarios out, shall we? There are 20 armed Border Patrol guards at the southern border. A group of migrants try to show up and enter the country illegally. They see the guards. So one of 2 things will happen. They will go back, or one of them will get shot, resulting in them going back. Doesn't matter what language you speak, guns are universal. Everybody knows what a shot in the arm means when you step 1 step too close to where you're supposed to have stayed. Just imagine that. Our tax dollars, at one time, they were going to Uber Eats for illegal aliens who don't even belong here in the first place. Our air marshals were down at the southern border making sandwiches for people who don't belong here, bringing diapers, taking care of children who do not belong here. Do you not understand how insane that is? The third world is essentially coming here so we can take care of them at the expense of the taxpayer. In the meantime, they have no regrets about committing the most heinous of crimes. The open border policy madness has to stop, and it will stop. All we have to do is make sure that Donald J. Trump secures a win in 2024 this November.